Hello and welcome back. So now that I'm stuck here, I thought I would talk to you a bit about my experiences in Japan and some observations I made during my brief visit there. Joining me for the adventure are my good friends, Mr. Nika Singlemont Miyagikyo and his charming wife, Suntory Toki. Anyhow, before we get started, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe. At the moment, there's only a few invitations going out to the annual subscribers ball, and even though that ball has been cancelled due to the World Lurgy and being an imaginary event, it would be nice to have a few more of you on the old mailing list. My first observation about Japan is that it is a society where cash is king. When I first arrived in the country, I didn't actually bring any yen with me. Usually I would sort out my foreign currency before arriving in a new country, but on this occasion I was kind of busy the week before getting married, so I didn't get around to it. Sometimes in the UK, you can actually get a really good rate at the airport if you just reserve the day before you go to the airport. But on this occasion, I couldn't even do that. So when I landed, I had this question hanging over me of how I was going to get some yen without getting ripped off. Now I have something called a Revolut card. I'm not endorsing it or anything, I'm just telling you that's what I had. And it's a cash card that you can top up using cash from your main bank account via an app on your phone. And using that card, you can pay for goods and services and withdraw money all over the world at a pretty competitive exchange rate. So when I arrived at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, I found an ATM that would work with this card. Now there are a variety of ATMs you can use as a foreigner to withdraw money in Japan. The main ones tend to be within convenience stores like Family Mart, Lawson, 7-Eleven, but there are others too. Now at the airport, when I was withdrawing currency, I could only withdraw 10,000 yen as a minimum every single time. By the exchange rate of when we were travelling, that's £72. That's quite a lot of money. That made me worry about how I was going to pay for small items. I looked up whether there might be a bank or something like that where I could go and exchange this money for smaller denominations. All the advice I found online said if you want to buy something, just pay the cashier with the notes you've got, even if they are of a larger denomination, and the cashier will give you change. I have to say that in my time in Japan, I found that to be true. And I would add that you can still use foreign credit cards to pay for things in Japan. It's just I only really use them for big purchases, namely hotel stays. Number 2, the toilets are as weird as you've heard. But before we get on with that, let's pour a whiskey. This is the Nika. This was the one I bought for something like £30 by the exchange rate at the time. That's probably in the region of $38, $40. And normally it retails for something more like 75, perhaps 80 pounds. Now I'm not an expert on whiskey. I enjoy whiskey, I've got plenty of it. I'm more of a Scotch man, I have to say, so these bottles have been my first foray into Japanese whiskey. But I'll try and give you an idea of what this thing tastes like. Yeah, there's sort of a slightly buttery note on the nose there. There's almost like a sort of caramel edge as well, sort of like burnt sugar. Anyway, let's have a taste. Oh wow. So the alcohol burn is actually quite mild on that one, and she goes down quite smoothly. There's a slight sweetness. Yeah, there is a very slight vanilla edge to it as well. There's not a great deal of smokiness there. I mean, there's notes of it maybe, but not a lot. As I said, I'm not really an expert on this stuff. I don't know what the correct terms are, and I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm picking up a slight hint of elderberries or just the tiniest little whiff of goat's cheese or anything like that. It's good, I'm going to enjoy drinking it. If you see a bottle for £35, it's worth it. Anyway, where were we? Toilets. So I don't know if any of you have seen that episode of The Simpsons where they all go to Japan and Homer finds a singing toilet. But yeah, the toilets out there are definitely, on the whole, more sophisticated than what we've got back here in the UK. The first hotel we went to, the toilet had a heated toilet seat, and there was like a control pad on the wall with different buttons. One of them flushed it, one of them created a bidet function. There was a whole bunch of other controls on that control panel as well. And to be completely honest with you, I have no idea what most of them did. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I didn't attempt to find out what these buttons did. I pressed them and they appeared to do nothing. Maybe somewhere in some room like an alarm was going off saying that this person is in dire straits. Maybe it was that. Maybe I sent up the bat signal over the city. I have no idea. But yeah, it's something for you to experiment with when you finally have your first experience with a very exciting Japanese toilet. Okay, number 3. This one's relevant to the Japanese Disney parks. It's a bit of a mystery I encountered there. I don't know why, but everybody's waving all the time. And by everybody I mean the staff. Now, I've been to the Disney parks out in Florida. It was a long time ago, but I've been. I've been to the parks out in California, and I've been to the ones in France as well. And I've never seen anything like this. Pretty much all the time when staff are not engaged in something else, they are waving and they are smiling. And it's slightly jarring actually. I'm not used to people just sort of waving at me and smiling. It was a bit new to me, and like any true-born Englishman, I tried to be polite about it and just wave and smile back. And apparently this doesn't happen very often, because that would always get a reaction out of them, like, oh my god, I can't believe finally someone has waved and smiled back. And then they'd wave and smile more, and we'd end up in this sort of Mexican wave-off. So it was like, it was just a bit of an unusual thing. I've not encountered it anywhere else. Wasn't a problem, I suppose, you know, I mean, it's just a bit different. So yeah, that's pretty much it for observation number 3. Observation number 4 is about rudeness. And I'm not talking about my own rudeness. There might have been an ignorant foreigner faux pas or two, but as far as I'm aware, I didn't do anything that was outrageous. My experience in Japan on the whole was very pleasant. There was a bit of a language barrier for sure, but I found that actually a lot of the time you could get around that with gestures and little bits of broken English here and there, and maybe a little bit of pointing to, I'll have one of those please, that kind of thing. At the same time as I say that, there were 2 instances that sort of stuck in my mind as being times where I thought perhaps I had just come across impolite Japanese people. Just the 2 times. So one of those times, when we were coming back from Hiroshima to Kyoto, when we got on the bullet train, the thing was absolutely packed. So Becky and myself, we hunted through the train, trying to find a place where there would be 2 seats together that we could use. And what do you know, we found 2 seats together, right opposite each other. The problem was that these 2 seats had some baggage on. There was a group of 4 Japanese people sat immediately next to them, and they had piled up all their bags on these 2 chairs that were right next to the windows. Back here in the UK, I don't put up with that from anybody else on the train. I think it's more important for people to have a seat than a bag. And so I'm not shy about going up to someone and asking them to move their bag. On this occasion, however, when I approached this group and asked them if they could move their bags from these 2 seats so that we might sit down, the answer was, no. And that was pretty much all we got out of them. Now, I'm pretty stubborn, and I wasn't willing to take that for an answer, so I said, yes. And this went back and forth for a bit. Eventually, they did move their baggage, and we were able to get a seat. Perhaps I've got it wrong, perhaps it's me who's committed the faux pas here. If you know the answer, please let me know in the comments, because I am legitimately curious. It also might have occurred to some of you the possibility that perhaps they were saving those spaces for friends. Perhaps these friends had gone to the toilet or to find the lady with the sandwich car. Perhaps they were getting on at the next stop. I can tell you that I didn't think that that was the case. I can also tell you that the entire time we were sitting there, nobody else approached this group, looking at us and wondering where their seats had gone. And when this group got off the train, which they did before us, it was just the 4 of them that got off unaccompanied. The other incident was one that happened in Tokyo. On our first full day in the city, we were looking just to get some pizza for lunch, and I was looking at my phone trying to figure out where we might go. I thought I'd found a place nearby, and I was just trying to get my bearings on Google Maps. And you know, sometimes you need to walk for a little bit just to see how the dot moves, just so you can be sure you're travelling in the direction you think you're travelling in. Well, I was doing that, so I'm walking along, I'm keeping an eye out on my phone, and then out of nowhere, this older guy just barged into me. And you might be thinking, okay, so you weren't looking where you're going, and the guy walked into you. It's an accident, nobody meant for it to happen. But here's the thing, a few seconds earlier, when I had looked up from my phone, this guy's path and my path were not going to be crossing each other. It's like he had moved across the pavement so that he could deliberately barge into me. I think the other thing is that he walked into me with some force. When he walked into me, I was like, wow, what's going on with you? And he immediately started shouting at me. Perhaps in Japan I was being rude. If so, it's news to me, and I think perhaps the guy could have handled it in a more diplomatic fashion. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Number 5. Grocery store food. Now, I know I touched on this in the Hakone video, but grocery store food in Japan is awesome. If you've watched all of the Japan travel vlogs, you might have noticed 1 or 2 days where we appear to have skipped lunch or skipped breakfast, and usually on those days it's because we filled ourselves up with some cheap and tasty convenience store food. Now, one of the things you can get from these convenience stores is like a seaweed wrap. It's like a small triangle of rice, and it will usually have some sort of filling like fish egg or salmon, and it will all be wrapped up in seaweed, and basically you can peel the plastic off, hold it by the seaweed and eat it like that. They've also got sushi. A lot of places appear to have kind of bowls of soup or ramen in the fridge. And there's the hot counter. Man, I love the hot counter. You could get fried chicken, usually more than one variety of fried chicken. You could get yakitori chicken. I think I saw squid in one place. Sausages, hash browns, beef croquettes, various other potato foodstuffs. I mean, you were really spoiled for choice. And it's not necessarily the same stuff in every store either. There's also something in a lot of them called, I think, Odin. And I didn't actually try this myself, but basically it's kind of a heated metal server that's near the register, divided into sections, and one bit will have broth in, another bit will have some kind of meat, another bit will have boiled eggs, for example, and you basically go up to the cashier and you tell them what you want, and they will pick it out for you and serve it, and you grab your chopsticks and off you go. Observation number 6. From my experience, the restaurants I went to in Japan tended to specialise in one kind of food. Now, I don't know if this is something that's common to restaurants across the country, but you think, for example, of like a pub here in the UK. You'll go, one of you can have a burger, one of you can have a roast dinner, one of you can have fish and chips. In Japan, they do it a little bit differently. It tends to be that the focus is one dish. You'll have a ramen place, there'll be a sushi place, maybe a barbecue place. They tend to specialise, they want to do one thing well. Quite often in these places you can get side orders, but in terms of your actual main course, there tends to be one option in a variety of different ways. For example, when we went to that okonomiyaki place in Nara, Becky soon discovered, much to her displeasure, that the only option on the menu was okonomiyaki, and she was going to have to be adventurous. Of course, that is kind of cool in a way, because it means that she tried something she might not have done otherwise. But if you've got a fussy eater with you, it can make life complicated. Okay, observation number 7. Double beds, man. I think pretty much every place we booked into, I booked a place with a double bed. And yet nearly every place we stayed at, we ended up with 2 separate beds. Sometimes they'd be pushed together to create something that appeared to be a double bed, but you still got that kind of gap in the middle. Other times, for example, when we stayed at that nice ryokan in Hakone, there we actually did have a double bed. But even then we had 2 of them, so they were like 2 separate ones. I don't know if it's a thing where in the UK and in Japan, a double room implies 2 different things. In the UK, I know that it implies a room with a double bed. Maybe in Japan, it implies something else. I don't have the answer to that one, but it's just something to be aware of, that if you're booking a double room, you may not actually be getting a double bed. We're nearly done with this one. If I appear to be drinking this whiskey tremendously fast at home, please be assured I've been at this for an hour now between various different takes. Tip number 8. This is going to be another Disney related tip. There are no virtual fast passes for you, my foreign friend. So before Tokyo, the last time I was in a Disney resort was, I think, the one in California. We had a great time there, and one of the things that actually made it a really good experience was the app. Using that app, you can access your ride photos, you can also get your ride times, and perhaps most crucially, you can get your fast passes. You can't do that in Tokyo. For some reason, the bosses at Tokyo Disney Resort have made it so that only Japanese residents can use the app to get fast passes. If you can download the Japanese version of the app and navigate through a Japanese language interface, then you can actually request fast passes using that. I managed to download that version of the app, but having done so, and having gone through the registration process that's required in order to make it function, we actually decided not to use it for fast passes. We figured if it's only for Japanese people, we didn't want to take any unnecessary risks, especially as we had waited so long to visit these parks. Okay, let's finish this bad boy. We'll try out the Suntory Toki, and I will try and give you a fair and honest opinion of how they compare. Yeah, it smells a lot younger. The alcohol is a lot more upfront on the nose. I've not picked up anything beyond that. Let's have a taste. Yeah, that's a lot sweeter actually. You can't really pick it up on the nose, but the second that hits your tongue, it's almost like there's kind of a sugar in it. I actually have to compare it to Monkey Shoulder, or maybe an Irish whiskey. That sort of bright vanilla edge on it. Again, it goes down really easy. It's actually a very nice whiskey though. It's very drinkable. I don't think it's as good as this one, and given that at normal market prices, that one would probably be about double the price of that one. I think that's reasonable enough. Anyway, I'm blabbering. It's good. Let's crack on with our next observation. Number 9. The JRL pass. It's good. It's not perfect, but it's probably worth having. So I'm going to try and give you an idea of the journeys we took using the JRL pass, which we collected at Haneda Airport in Tokyo on our first day in Japan. So our JRL pass got us out of the airport and into Tokyo city centre. From there it got us onto Kyoto. The next day we used the rail pass to go from Kyoto city centre to Arashiyama. Then we used it to come back again. We used the rail pass to get to the Fushimi Inari Shrine, and then on to Nara, and back again. We used the rail pass to get down to Hiroshima, and from Hiroshima down to the Miyajima ferry port, get on the ferry and back again. We also used the rail pass to get from Kyoto up to Odawara, and then finally we used it to get from Odawara back into Tokyo. I mean, the rail pass for us covered a lot of journeys, but it doesn't cover all journeys. It only covers certain subway lines in Tokyo, and it doesn't cover all the bullet trains either. I think there are 2 types of bullet train that you can't get using a JR rail pass, and I think the fines if you get caught using them, depending what journey you're trying to make, can actually be quite hefty. All I can tell you is that we never got it wrong. There was never any moment during the trip where both of us had to hide in the toilets from ticket inspectors. Not one. Okay, for us, without a shadow of a doubt, we definitely save money by getting the JR Rail Pass. You need to get it in advance, and you need to have it mailed to your home address. I think you can also get it mailed to your hotel in Japan when you're there, but in my opinion it would make sense to sort this sort of stuff out before you arrive. Tip number 10. We're about to get heavy meta here, people. YouTube. If you've seen my Japan travel vlogs, a lot of the ideas for things to do in those videos came to me from watching other people travelling. There were so many YouTube videos I watched about Japan before coming that it's difficult to know exactly what came from where, but I'm 100% sure I had handy travel tips from Paolo from Tokyo, Los LeBlanc, and abroad in Japan. Check out their videos and hopefully they'll give you some ideas too. I also found the website for Inside Kyoto very useful. It tells you little things, little details that you might not otherwise appreciate about places that you're visiting in Kyoto. Other than that, there was TripAdvisor, Google Maps is very helpful for restaurants, and there was definitely a bit of just general search engine research about the places we were going to. Well, that's that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So here's to you, here's to Japanese whiskey, and here's to Japan. Sayonara.